Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the 2022 season of teissTalk with me, your host, Jenny Radcliffe, on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock, and with Jeff White on Thursdays at 4 o'clock. You are very, very welcome. We have got a great show for you today. We are going to be talking about your two new security roles that we think are probably essential to be in the security business in 2022 and beyond. We're going to be talking about security champions and about business information security officers, or BISOs, BISO, CISO, CISO, let's call the whole thing off. And we're going to be talking about that later with a cracking panel. Later, I am joined by Tariq Wani, who is the Business Information Security Officer at Kimberly-Clark, and also by Neil King, who is a European Business and Security Specialist at Canon Europe. But first, I am going to be joined by a lady who is a friend of the show and is one of our regular guests. And before I just shout you on stage, Daniela Lorenko, I just want to say hello to all our teissTalk audience, who I can already see you in the chat. Big shout out to everybody. It's nice to see you back for 2022. We are looking for maximum participation, please, both on here and on social media. You can hashtag us at teissTalk. Please ask questions and comments in the chat. And you, as always, for 2022, the best questions, comments, or interaction will receive the new style teissTalk mug that I'm going to drink out of like this because the logo moves around in an absolutely planned fashion. So hi to everybody, great to see you all, and let's bring on our first guest. My first guest is Daniela Lorenko. She is the Business Information Security Officer, as I said, at CarNext. Welcome to the desk. Daniela, it is so great to have you on the show.
It's so weird to be on this side. I'm, as I say, I'm a fan of this talk show because it's entertaining, it's informative, and who doesn't love listening to Jenny at the end of the afternoon? So, and Jeff, of course.
And Jeff, well, a bit like, of course. No, we're joking, Jeff. We love you really. No, thank you, Daniela. It's so nice to have you on the show. Let's first of all, you're perfect for this episode, of course, because you are in fact advisor. But let's talk a little bit more about your role and what it is that you do at the moment.
Well, that's the difficulty, Jenny, and especially to explain what I do to non-techie people. I take like 10 minutes to explain. What I usually do is to summarize it. I'm a translator of geeky to non-geeky. That explains the major part of it, being, well, an advocate or a translator between the business requirements and the security roadmap. Mm-hmm. Because let's face it, the organizations, operations, they do not need to know technical security jargon. They do not need to know what happens in the background. And
some people in the industry only barely need to know. Hello, everyone. No, I'm joking, exactly. Of course. But yeah, I mean, of course, when we speak to our non-techie colleagues, it's easy to switch them off quite quickly, I think.
Well, yeah, and not only the interest fades away, but also the engagement. And you need to make sure that the security feels relevant for them, for what they do on their day-to-day. Otherwise, you're just going to lose them, and you can't really implement a security roadmap if you don't have the sense of what the organization wants to do, the sense of mission, the sense of the objectives, and that you're there to support instead of being the control function. I think that nowadays we're a bit farther away from the Department of No, but we've been there, and the reputation precedes us, and that's something that I would like to change.
A dubious honor, but we're going to pick up on those comments with Neil and Tariq in just a minute. But I'm interested in you as well, because your journey to get to what you did, you're kind of perfectly qualified, aren't you, to do this? I mean, you studied communications and culture and things like that, right?
Exactly. That was my major. I wanted to be a war reporter. That's what I wanted to do for a living.
Okay.
That didn't turn out very well. The thing is that, well, I got to security or compliance first by accident. I had the communication skills. I had the soft skills. And, well, I was a bit of a geeky, or a lot of a geeky already. And
so did you love tech then? Is that what
I
you said?
did love tech. I was still the early days of programming in MS-DOS and all the tricks and tricks that we usually did with our first computer. I always loved tech. I was a gamer, a retired gamer now because I'm a grown-up now.
Oh, now that's a controversial one. Isn't it the biggest industry in the world, the gaming industry? I don't believe that you don't go back to it.
As my current boss says, growing old is mandatory. Growing up is voluntary. So
Yes.
indeed, but my interest was in the tech, and then I was in compliance. Then they realized that I had some a gift for for information security, for translating and to understand the local culture, because every single organization has their own culture and subcultures, and translate what we need to do, what security requirements that we need to implement in their own language. And not only that, to understand and make clear what is important for the company or the organization at the end of the day. And I was an ISO, like any other ISO in the market. And at a certain point, my CISO back then, at least Bunny, decided that you wanted to get rid of the ivory tower feeling. So you wanted to have the 3 lines of defense, but a bit closer to the business. And then he just looked at me and said, well, I don't have anyone better than you to fill those shoes. And that's how I became a BISO, which actually I didn't hear about before I actually turned out to be one.
I think it's still quite, I think this is one of the things we're going to talk about with the panel, because it's still quite a new role in a lot of organizations, I think. I mean, what do you think it would have been called before, Daniela? Was it not defined? Were you kind of ISO without portfolio sort of thing? Did you just whoever was good at it did it?
Yeah, most likely. And it will always depend on the structure of the organization, because in small organizations, it doesn't make sense to have a CISO and a BISO and an ISO. Maybe the CISO can actually be a BISO as well, so have a lot of initials behind that.
Yeah, they all have really long. You guys all have really long business cards with like alphabets underneath.
Yes, we go through all the words. I'm still waiting for somebody to come up with a Z. That will be interesting. A hard one, though.
That could be. Let's get the audience thinking about what is ISO. What could a ISO stand for? Do let us know in the chat and the comments. What does ISO stand for? I like the idea of the audience coming up with an answer to that. Maybe the best one wins the coveted mug, which you've got, of course. You've got the old mug.
Sorry?
You've got the old mug. I was just saying they'll win a mug if they
goes did you notice? Sorry. I was trying to be discreet. No, I'm just bragging.
So let's just talk about what's across your desk at the moment. I know you can't go into specifics, obviously none of our lead guests can. But in terms of going forward into 2022, what do you think from that position that you're in, that BISO position that you're in, what do you think our audience and people listening to this should really be thinking about and focusing on that perhaps they're missing at the moment going into the new year?
Well, first of all, and this is what I advocate over and over again, take a step back. Look at the organization that you're in, look at the business that you're in, try to understand what actually you want to do in the next few years. Zombies, I see zombies.
I think a zombie information security officer is very good. It's going to take some beating.
That's much what we are right now. That's a good one. And you see in certain cases, in certain organizations, that there is an emphasis in having the best of breed technology, having state-of-the-art defense mechanisms. Whereas, well, you know better than anyone, Jenny, sometimes the single point of failure is not a technical one. And you can't really protect what you don't know. Actually, I have a poll to suggest, Jenny.
Okay.
Myself, which is... did you, and I don't know about the audience, if you ever sat with the operational part of your organization to understand what they actually do and how they do their work, just sit around and try to know them and try to understand what your organization does. And IT doesn't count, I think, because we all have to sit with IT sooner or later.
We do. So sometimes every week at the same time, we have to sit with IT, like 4:00 on Tuesdays. Everybody. No, but I think that's it. What's your poll question? We need to be very clear to our teissTalk Health what your question is, Daniela. You know that we have to give them very clear directions.
Oh, well, if teissTalk Health wants to rephrase, but how do you know? Do you know your operations? Do you know how they work on a day-to-day basis? Have you spent a day with operations?
Okay, so yeah, let's see if the teissTalk Elf can translate that into a poll, because Danielle is saying that is a vital part of her job and of everyone's job, right?
It is indeed, because people won't proactively look for you as a security. Zenith Information Star Orbiter, wonderful. They will reactively if they really need to. And also, people do look for marketing. People do look for IT whenever they need. They never look for security. Mm-hmm. And you need to cross that bridge. You need to be the one being available, the one that they can reach out to. Mm-hmm. And that is useful both for so many reasons. I have users checking whether these suspicious emails are malicious or not. I have cases where security gets much more involved in the third-party management, in the supply chain management, mm-hmm. because people do talk about it with me. So they ask, what do we need to do in terms of security to get this supplier up and running with us? So just getting close to the business, and that's why business is in the role name, and sometimes being a devil's advocate as well.
Okay. So teissTalk Health has translated the poll question into: have you spent a day with the operational part of your organization to understand what they do, not including IT as opposed to IT security? And that's either a yes or a no answer. We'll close the poll at the end and see how you've answered Daniela's question. And as you can see, Daniela knows our platform very well, which is why she wants to introduce a poll. So Daniela, look, it's great to speak to you about that. We've got some questions coming in already on the Q&A that'll do that are perfect for you and for the rest of the panel. But for now, and for our opening talk, it has been so lovely to have you on as our lead guest.
It's wonderful.
Such a supporter of the show from the very start. So thank you for that, Daniela. Daniela's going to stay with us whilst we invite our panel on, the rest of our panel today, and talk a little bit about our news item and everything else. It's so great to see some of these ZISO or ZISO suggestions. I think Zombies is going to take some beating, but we've got a few here from Dean. Zenith Information Star Orbiter, I like very much. Zettabyte Guardian from Hendrik, all very good. And yes, Simon, my LinkedIn does have me eating brains because I'm a social engineer, but after the brains, Zombies have hacking, it's obscure. So before we go any further down that rabbit hole, thanks again to Daniela, and let's invite our other two panel members onto the show. We have Neil King, who is the business and security specialist at Canon, and Tariq Wani, who is the BISO at Kimberly-Clark. Welcome to the show, both of you. How are we today?
Excellent, thanks.
We're good. I wanted to talk to you. Obviously, we're going to get back to this topic of BISOs and CISOs, as well as security champions in a little while, but we did need to pick a news item. And this week, we had to pick the news item that everyone has been talking about, and I think was waiting for as perhaps a good start for 2022, which is the fact that Russia, the FSB in Russia, have arrested REvil ransomware gang members and have seized, we've took this particular article from Bleeping Computer, Tyself has put that in the chat for you all, but they have seized 6.6 million US, which translated into $600,000 in cash at the venue, 500,000 euros, 426 million rubles, and also 20 luxury cars and other items from locations in St. Petersburg, Moscow, and elsewhere in Russia. Neil King, first of all, how significant is this do you think, in terms of ransomware for 2022?
I think it's a very good start to the year. You can't do that, and also in the week you've seen, it's not just those. UniCC is shut down, so one of the credit card markets has seen a retirement, and that may well also be linked to the fact that there's now bounties on their heads. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting. What I think will be really interesting is how quickly the vacuum gets filled.
Mm-hmm.
On the surface, it's really good. It'll be interesting if they then follow through and extradite to other territories.
Well, I think that is the question, isn't it? Of what it leads to. I mean, Tariq Wani, what do you think about that in terms of, the US apparently petitioned Russia to get this done, and they followed through on it. It looks good on the surface.
This is real. Gone are the days when we used to say ransomwares are just the 0 days. Boards are in the current circumstance. Board members are very much aware in the industries or the company in which we are operating, like supply chains, which is the core of our business. Mm-hmm. We have seen such attacks happening in the past, and it's closer to the regions as well, like APAC, where one or the other issues keep popping up. People are not talking much in the countries like India, China, just because of the regulations, but these threats are real. And a lot of businesses are expected to be impacted in the upcoming year as well. That is 2022. And it's number one. I wouldn't say number one, but it's one of the top 5 threats which will pop up in the year 2022.
Absolutely. And I mean, just back to Daniela for a second, you wanted to be a war reporter. Did you see one of the reasons that we chose Bleeping Computers coverage of this as opposed to everyone else's was because there's footage. If you go to that link, folks, and look at it, there's actual footage of the arrest, Daniela. Very good on camera. What do you think in terms of propaganda?
Well, I do think that they didn't wear gloves when handling the money, by the way, but that's just me. Well, there goes any fingerprint investigation on forensics on that. Yes, it can be a propaganda, and also if we're wearing a tinfoil hat right now, we might say maybe this is just a possibility of negotiating with the Western allies to say, hey, this is what we can do if you don't issue us sanctions for something that we may or may not be about to do in terms of occupying other nations' territories. I prefer to see this as a very effective way of cooperating between countries. This also, well, it goes back to a previous operation that was Gold Dust that involved Interpol, Europol. Mm-hmm. And it is possible that countries get together to get these threats, which we see as volatile or not really physical, we can actually see them tangible.
Yes.
And that they are vulnerable. And another thing I take from the video is that if you look around, you can see that they're normal people again. And we could go on talking about the stereotype of a hacker being wearing a hoodie and etc. But at the end of the day, they are normal people. We don't know if they're if those are actors or anything. I'm not a.
You're so suspicious. As soon as we were talking about this in the prep yesterday, Danielle's like, that's rather convenient. I mean, this is the thing with working in security. We do get a bit kind of paranoid and suspicious of things. But yeah, I mean, it sort of brought the bogeyman out the dark a little bit that we saw them, didn't we, Neil? I mean, we saw them getting dragged out of bed. We've got people commenting there, Chris commenting.
And they managed to do it without guns, which was really impressive for the FSB.
Yes. Maybe there was guns that we didn't see, I suppose, because it was a bit. But I don't think anyone was holding back, Neil.
I think one of the amusing comments I heard was in terms of, will the American sanctions allow them to give the $10 million reward to the FSB?
That's a thorny one. Well, I don't know about that, but I think we can all agree any time that we can stop a ransomware gang is probably a good thing. That at least on the surface, this is an excellent start, as Neil said. For
and I think also there you've now got that potential in terms of whether 2 and 3 are then going to try to move into the top position, or what's going to happen to that dog, the dog fight between the gangs. I mean, we know end of last year that people were starting to hack each other. There was a breakdown between some of the, whether that will continue, and there'll be whilst they're trying to resolve who now becomes the top dog in the ransomware space, whether that gives other people an opportunity.
Yeah, it's certainly, as Tarek said, it's one to watch for 2022 to see if this is the start of a trend of maybe taking some of these gangs down, and certainly, like as Daniela points out, showing that it's not the bogeyman in the dark, or indeed hackers with black hoodies used
I prefer to believe it's a happy ending, and we can do this.
We can do this. So I've got, keep your comments coming, folks. We've got Zorro, Information Security Officer, in the chat. And Mark saying Russia's already cyber attacking the UK, much like 2017. So we've got lots of comments. Do keep them coming. Now, one thing I will say that's going to lead us seamlessly, professionally, skillfully into our main topic is that, of course, their liaison manager of Revel, whose handle was pretty much unknown, so that's his name, his or her name was unknown. The spokesperson was, of course, arrested some time ago, and it just made me think, when I was looking for a tenuous link into our main topic, was the person that they arrested a while ago, was the spokesperson and liaison for the Revel ransomware gang, their Biso. Oh God, I don't know how to say it. Let's perhaps go to Tarek first of all. Tarek, I'm only joking about the spokesperson, but do you want to tell us a little bit more about your role as a business information security officer and what it is that you do in Kimberley Clark?
So my role, thanks for giving this opportunity. First to go with, let me try to explain my role. To sum up, I am just the messenger for our CIO and CISO to the business, and vice versa. That is how I define my role. In my day-to-day job, what I do is I do everything when it comes to the security, just because, as Daniela initially told, that people come to me for problems. Whenever they come to me for solutions. It doesn't matter. So to balance everything, what I do for the organization is I identify the risks and balance them, cyber versus business. So that's what I do in my role. So technically what I do here is I am sitting very closer to the APAC president. So because I manage the APAC region, we do have a business close to $4 billion in this region. I sit very closer to the president along with some other IT leaders, help them in their daily jobs when it comes to the risk management or balancing the acts, and then help them in translating those decisions when it comes to the cyber. So as I said, as Daniela earlier said, I am playing a dual role. At one side, I am the customer for my cyber team. That's my role, because I am demanding at every moment, because I am representing business. And for the business itself, I am the messenger. So that is a nutshell for my role. So at one side, I'm a customer, and the other side, I am the consumer of the IT services. So how I reflect it is I treat business number one priority. My number two priority is IT, and cyber is third. So that's my the end goal, and that is what leads to the success of this role.
So, I mean, it sounds, Neil, like, Tarek's just, it's accurate. The term bridge builder is an accurate term for Tarek's role. Is that the same for you?
Yeah, very similar. I actually quite like the idea of title of B, so it will take so many words off my business card. No, yeah, and I think it's a similar sort of thing. I mean, there's that role that has been around for quite a while. I mean, part of my role is I talk to the people that get involved with the tendering and translate the security requirements into tender talk. Mm-hmm. And another part of the business is doing the same, going out the other way, talking to our supply chain and working alongside product and a whole range of different people. I think the role has been there for a while, and it's nice to see it sort of more clearly defined, because I think it's where the security generalist really can shine. And I think there's that broad rather than depth piece that's got enough experience of the width to be able to do that translation role across the different lines of the business and the customers and the suppliers, and to bring all that together.
Yeah, I mean, does it presuppose, do you think, Daniela, and I think you hinted at this earlier, does it presuppose that the CISO is either too busy or lacks a skill set that helps with that kind of business-focused, cross-functional communication that's required for that? Does it presuppose that they don't have it?
I wouldn't go that far in and saying that my peers lack those skills, but you do see that there are CISOs and there are security professionals that do lack the soft skills, which I actually came from in the beginning. So my course was the other way around. I think that they're too busy, and not only that, they're too close to the board. They are concerned about and busy with discussing the strategy and what is going to be done now, how it's going to impact the business. And I did mention earlier that sometimes we are a bit of a devil's advocate, because as we close to the organization, close to the operations, if a CISO wants to, in the roadmap, wants to add certain controls, you know for a fact, because you've been there in the trenches, those controls are not going to fly. I can maybe give an example. It's decided in the headquarters that you want a very complex and very effective segregation of duties, access control policy. Locally, the BISA would know that the only person that can actually perform a task is one person. And then that person has 2 or 3 colleagues. And Jenny, you know better than I do what they're going to do. If only one person has access to a certain role, they'll share the passwords.
Oh, and yes. But we both discussed in the BISA wasn't, but yes, I don't disagree.
We know that they're going to do it. And that is the role. And maybe, I don't know if I'm partially answering the question that that was posted by Oliver, in turning the ISO into a BISO, is to getting the BISO to be closer to the business, to advocate for the business in those strategic decisions, such as the COO, the Chief Operations Officer, implements what the CEO wants to do.
Because Oliver asked, how does an information security officer pivot to a business information security officer? And would like to know more about the role. And I think you've explained that really, really well. You do need to apologize to Oliver, because your comment about gaming really got him really upset, Oliver. Your comment about gaming being for grown-ups really upset Oliver. Daniela.
I'm pretending, okay? I need to pretend I'm at a teissTalk.
Okay? She's kidding. Sort of. So yeah, I mean, devil's advocate sounds like it does sum up what you do as well, Tariq. I mean, that's when you say you're on the customer side and the one, and that is devil's advocate accurate for you as well? Is that what you'd say?
Absolutely. So since I'm closer to the region, closer to the business, I understand, I identify early warnings, sentiments, what is the impact to the business, and how much security is sufficient for them. Are they going to accept it? So those are the early warnings which I need to tap in and feed back to the leadership.
Are you arguing with people all the time then, if you're a devil's advocate all the time?
Sometimes it is important, because that is the part of the role. So identifying early warnings is one of the aspects. Identifying sentiments, then how to translate them. Sometimes we have to take the other approaches as well, wherein escalations are needed to be, and things like that, to embed the security controls and do the right risk management approaches and processes around it. But yeah, I fully agree what Daniela said.
Thank you, Tariq. I'm going to come to you, Neil, because there's lots of interest in this topic. And we've got a question in the question tab from Brian. And he's asking, is there a difference then between a BISO and a deputy CISO? What's your view on that, Neil?
Yeah, I think there definitely is, and I'm just going to sort of take it back into sort of the history again. When I used to work in the finance industry, you used to get business security managers that were IT and security people that were embedded in the business, and the various parts of the business, and they were almost a sub team that went right around the business in those days. And gradually, as cuts and whatever went in, they were one of the roles that went, but the role was there, and it certainly proved a very valuable piece. And one area where it really mattered was they understood the culture of the business that they were in. So they had that joint piece, and to expand on that further, I mean, Canon is a multinational, so you've not only got the business culture, you're then also dealing with different cultures in different parts of the world, and the way that people address these sorts of issues. So, be it a role, or be it the role of a business champion or an enthusiast that's keen on providing security piece, I think the role of the BISO is far more aligned to managing the culture, and the role of the deputy CISO is to support the CISO and perhaps go out sideways a bit. But his main role is to support the CISO to help on those bits, and then the BISO role is more to explain and help and use either the business champions or the regular meetings with the business to say, how do we get this into your organization? What do we need to say to make your people understand the best way to achieve X or Y?
Yeah, and it's different.
Piece. It's the same way you address it via the culture and not via demand.
I think you've said that as well, Tariq, haven't you? It's about understanding those cultural differences and how to interpret it differently. That's not necessarily a technical role, it's a comms role.
Absolutely, it is, because when we talk about global organizations, at the end of it, we have to understand the business. Like as an example, at the end of it, every day, unless and until we are not selling diapers, our business is not going to run. So that is what I have to understand. So how are we going to sell those diapers? We need to identify and understand the cultures. We have to do our jobs when it comes to the security at the last mile. So I would say BISOs at certain point in time play the role of foot soldiers for the CISOs and CIO to make the delivery consistent as per the organization's goals, embed security policies and programs in projects at the granular level. So that's exactly where this business acumen is very important for the success of the BISO role.
Well, we're going to finish up on BISOs in a minute and talk about security champions in a second, but I just want to get to Daniela for Benjamin's question in the chat, which is, given how all the panelists have described how they translate and communicate with the CISO, are we finally missing that everything we ask of a CISO is too much? Daniela, what's your view on that to sort of maybe close this one out?
I would say that it would depend on the organization indeed. There are organizations that will not, smaller ones, will not need a CISO and a BISO. But if you were asking in a more complex organization for the CISO to be able to translate the bigger picture in strategic roadmap and project manage the implementation of it, yes, I would say that you are asking too much. And that's where the BISO comes in. I would think so.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for the questions. We've just got one more very, very quickly. Perhaps I'll just go to Neil very quickly on this one. Just Martin's asked, how much overlap is there between the roles of BISO and enterprise security architect? Some, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think there's some, because the role is the two-way bit. It's also translating the customer back into the system.
Excellent.
And making sure that there used to be a poster that had making a swing. This is what the customer asked for, and then there's all these various designs about what the swing actually looked for, and actually what he wanted was a piece of rope with a tire on the end. And it's sort of the BISO role to make sure that if the customer asks for a bit of rope and a tire, that's what he gets, and they don't get this super. So it's a two-way role. So
that's interesting. So it's to keep everything in scope and to make sure that the focal point is very clear.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah.
It's doing that. It's the what's possible piece, and it's also translating back to the architect as to actually this is all they want. And sometimes we don't need the bells and whistles that someone wants to put on it because that might do A and B, when actually the customer really just wants B.
So thank you for that panel. And we've still got suggestions coming in for the Z ISO, including another one from Simon, who's on fire this evening with Zoom ISO these days, unless you use Skype or Teams, as well as Dean's given us a sensible one, which is BISO seems to be the enabler of a secure business. Let's just quickly pick up on our last kind of 10 minutes or so of the show, because it was two roles that we were speaking about. In fact, it was the BISO role, but it's also the idea of security champions. And for me, the idea of that being a role was a little bit of a misnomer, really. It's for me, I'm a massive advocate of security champions, but I don't see it as a role in and of itself. I mean, I'll come to Tariq first. I mean, do you see that as a role in and of itself within the business, or is it something that we all embrace? I suppose you could go either way.
Yeah, it is, but we don't name it that way. We call them ambassadors.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a great program here in my organization, wherein every year we roll out who wants to be the security ambassador. So
For the
they
function.
come from business, yeah, from the function, from the mail area, from a department, or whatever you call it. So we get great nominations for that. So they are the ones who are the testers for cybersecurity whenever we have any security rollout, any program rollout. So they are the ones who are the early adopters. Their feedback is important before we launch it at the global scale. So yeah, but just the nomenclature is a little different. So we call them ambassadors.
At least ambassadors, champions, superheroes. I've heard them called many different things. And I think, Daniela, what Tariq is saying there sort of hints at what you were saying about that understanding operationally. It's better that it's the people within the function stepping up, surely, than having someone who's appointed as a security champion in and of itself, as I would have thought.
Yes, but then you need somebody to summarize it all, right, and take it to the CISO, for example, and that is why the BISO is different in that sense. But I do see a lot of value in security champions, especially because we need to play with the human nature. We need, in order to receive something that is compliance with security controls, we need to give them something, and we love titles. We love the fact that we are topping up our normal day-to-day life with Superman symbol or a champion at the end of our names. And at the end of the day, the organization, the business, the operations, they're the ones bringing money in. They're the ones making everything work.
Mm-hmm.
And we do need to implement security. We can't do that without them. Let's pull ourselves, and that's where they come in as well. We need to get them on our side. We need to sit with them instead of in front of them, instead of against them.
Yeah, I mean, Neil, is this a luxury?
No, I think what it is potentially organic, and I think it's finding the people that have the enthusiasm and the keenness, and supporting that. And if the phrase champions or whatever means the people that you support to that security role, then perhaps it's from those champions that you're going to find the next generation of BISOs.
Yeah.
Because they will be learning from both. They will be learning across the whole piece. That they will get more involved with the security side, and you're looking for the person that enthusiastically takes it on, rather. And I would rather have an area where you're covering it from the centre than having someone that's been forced into a role in a country or a position and doesn't have an enthusiasm for the role. Let that enthusiasm come from the centre. But if you've got someone on site and someone that's in a team or the part of the business that's got that spark and you know what, I want to do this, and you can support that, then that's when your champion starts moving towards that next piece. And you then start also moving away from that whole problem of, and there's your next generation internal recruitment as well.
Yeah.
We say a lot of the time that finding these people in the marketplace is, well, actually, maybe security champion is the way to find them first.
Do you know, that's such a good point. And I think there's nothing wrong with calling them champions, ambassadors or whatever. I mean, there's no, I feel that the less boring we can possibly be to our non-technical colleagues, probably, the more enthusiastic people are to join it. And you do always find, don't you, panel, that there are people who, when they first hear about, I know from social engineering, when people start hearing about social engineering, there's one or two people who are so enthusiastic that they want to be so involved. And the next thing you know, like Neil says, I mean, it's such a good point that we find, then maybe we're finding our next generation from within the business, certainly from the BISO role. I think that's an excellent point. Let's have a look. We've got another question come up in the Q&A from Benjamin. And it is about measuring and reporting the impact or any of the non-CISO roles we're talking about, but especially communicators and translators. How can you know that any of this stuff is having an impact? How do we measure the impact of something that's not really, I suppose, quantitative? I don't know who wants to take that.
I would disagree. I think there is. Sorry.
Let's go Neil first. I'll go now. Neil.
Okay. I think you can. I think there are a number of measures that you can pull together for the bigger picture. You can look at security incidents. How secure is the office? Our laptops being lost, lost and stolen, our phones being lost or stolen. It's the training piece. Are the same areas that haven't been championed or whatever returning the same results as part of the testing? I think there are ways to measure it, and I think there's also again a certain amount that looks at the culture and say, actually, we don't just need to test this against our own organisation. We also need to test it locally against people from the same culture.
Yeah. Just to add on that, thanks Neil. Just to add on that, one of the key metrics to measure the BISO success is, to me, establishing accountability and ownership of whatever we are doing for the business. So it's important because CISOs and other security guys do not have that much visibility who does what. So it is measurable because service delivery and embedding controls and all those things is what BISOs does. And this is one of their measurable KPIs.
I mean, I don't want my CISO too worried. I mean, I prefer that they were focused on what they should be focused on, given our news article and everything else. I'd rather have a specialist in that, in the business, in the crossover function. Personally, I've just got some comments I just want to raise just before we have to go. We're almost at our time. This one has gone really, really quickly. I knew our audience and panel would get a lot of conversation out of this one, and we did. But we've got Oliver saying most organisations would surely struggle to hire ambassadors or champions in their own right. Not sure if you meant that, Jenny. I did mean that. I mean, I do think that, if we can see, I do see BISO roles advertised. And I guess if you've got a BISO role advertised, in my head, it wasn't such a huge jump to kind of advertise for functional security champions. But I think your point's right, Oliver. It's difficult to expect a security champion operating in addition to their day job to give us the best answers. So it's one of those where it's definitely a foot in both camps, I think. Daniela, would you agree with that?
I do agree with that. That's why I say that you need somebody to sum it all up from the business and try to make sense of it in terms of security requirements. Just adding something very controversial, Jenny, in terms of the role and the effectiveness, and that was one of the questions of the BISO role and the champion's role. I would say that the effectiveness can be seen by the increase of incidents. Of security incidents, because there's more reporting. If people are reporting, people are actually being alert. So if I see an increase in security incidents, that's actually a good sign in most of the cases.
And would you categorize that very particularly so you'd know that it wasn't just, it wasn't down to anything else?
Well, you can see the difference. You can see the way that people report more. You can see the points of entry of an incident report, and you can also see how the community in the organization is engaged in that. You can see a difference. That can actually, if you want to translate it for the board level, just go for the savings on investment instead of the return on investment. Show them how much you're saving them.
Well, I think I couldn't agree more, and I think that's a great way to end this discussion on this. Although I do think that we need to run more teissTalk episodes on this particular topic, because it's certainly got everyone talking on this first episode of 2022. Just to say thank you to everyone in our teissTalk audience who have been brilliant tonight with all their comments. Don't forget to tune in next Thursday to Jeff White, who was talking about transfer and risk. What should cyber insurance cover on Thursday at 4 p.m. UK for another episode of teissTalk. I want to say thank you very much to my wonderful panel today. You've been so amazing on this topic. To Tariq Wani, to Neil King, and to Daniela Lorenko for all of your comments. And thanks to our teissTalk else and everybody else for helping the show take such a great turn for 2022. In terms of the teissTalk mug, I think the person that has to get this mug has to be Simon for that fantastic zombie information security officer. How could I possibly award it to anyone else? That's all from me, and we'll see you again next time on teissTalk. Good night.